I used to avoid mirrors. Not because I didn't own one, but because every time I looked, I saw a stranger staring back. Someone who didn't fit the version of me that lived inside my head. I'd glance at my reflection while brushing my teeth, or fixing my hair, and instantly feel that small twist in my stomach like the world had played a joke I wasn't in on. For years, I told myself it was just insecurity, that everyone felt that way. But deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. It was like wearing someone else's face, someone else's name, someone else's life, and pretending it fit. I remember the first time it really hit me. I was 16, standing in a clothing store with my mom. She handed me a shirt, plain, boxy, dull, and said, "This looks nice on you." I smiled, nodded, did what I always did, pretended. But when I caught my reflection in the fitting room mirror, I froze. It wasn't that I looked bad, I just looked wrong. I didn't know how to say that out loud, didn't have the words for what was missing. All I knew was that the person in the mirror wasn't me. That feeling followed me everywhere through school, college, friendships, even love. People saw confidence in me that I didn't feel. They thought I was shy, or private, or moody. The truth was, I was terrified someone would look too closely and realize I was faking everything. I didn't know how to explain that my reflection was my biggest secret, that it hurt more than any insult could. It took years before I even dared to question what was wrong. I remember scrolling online one night, reading stories from people who talked about not recognizing themselves, about gender, identity, and finding peace in transformation. I told myself it wasn't me. I wasn't like that. I closed the laptop, heart racing, hands shaking. But later that night, I opened it again. And again. And again. Because something in those stories made my chest ache, not out of fear, but recognition. I started small. Tiny, invisible changes that no one noticed at first. I grew my hair a little longer. Changed my style just slightly. Tried on softer colors, looser shapes. I told everyone it was just fashion, a phase. But when I caught my reflection in the mirror one morning wearing something that felt like me for the first time, I almost cried. Not because I looked perfect. But because, for a split second, the person in the mirror looked alive. Of course, the world noticed eventually. People asked questions. Some laughed. Some whispered. My parents didn't understand. My father said I was confused. My mother said it was just a stage. I wanted to believe them, but the longer I tried to go back, the more it hurt. It wasn't rebellion. It wasn't performance. It was survival. Every time I hid who I was, it felt like erasing a part of myself that was still fighting to breathe. I remember one night, sitting alone in my room, staring at the mirror in the dark. The only light came from the street outside, soft and orange. My reflection was blurry, almost ghost-like. I whispered, "Who are you?" The silence that followed was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. Then, for the first time, I whispered again, "Who do you want to be?" And somehow, that question broke something open inside me. I didn't have the answer then. But it was the first time I dared to ask. The following months were chaos. Some people drifted away. Some stayed. I changed how I dressed, how I spoke, how I carried myself. Some mornings were full of hope, others full of doubt. I'd wake up some days feeling free, and others feeling like I was losing everything. But with each step, I felt a strange peace grow inside me, like I was rebuilding something that had always been waiting for me to come home. Then came the day that changed everything. I'd been avoiding family gatherings for months. My mother called, her voice soft, saying she missed me. I almost said no, but something inside me said it was time. So I went. I wore what made me feel right, not what I thought they wanted. I remember standing in the hallway, hearing the hum of voices, laughter, plates clinking. When I stepped inside, the room fell silent. My uncle looked away. My aunt whispered something to her husband. My father's face tightened. But my mother, she just looked at me. For a long time. Then she said softly, "You look happy." I didn't realize I was crying until I felt the tears run down my cheeks. That was the first time anyone in my family had really seen me and not the mask I'd been wearing. After that, things didn't magically get easier. But they became real. I found friends who didn't flinch when I spoke about how I felt. I started therapy. I learned that transformation wasn't just about clothes or names, it was about learning to exist without apology. Some days, I'd still wake up and see the old me in the mirror, blurry and sad. But slowly, that image started to fade. Slowly, I began to see someone soft, strong, imperfect, but real. There was one morning I'll never forget. It was raining outside, quiet and grey. I was getting ready for work, running late as usual. I caught my reflection, half asleep, hair messy, no makeup, no pretense. And for the first time, I didn't flinch. I didn't analyze. I didn't pick apart my flaws. I just looked and smiled. It wasn't about beauty or perfection. It was about peace. That's when I whispered, "I love you." And this time, I meant it. People often ask what changed, what made me finally love myself. The truth is, nothing magical happened. No fairy tale. Just honesty, pain, patience, and time. I stopped trying to be who everyone else expected, and started being who I actually was. It cost me people, but it gave me myself. And once you've met the person you were meant to be all along, you can't go back to pretending. Even now, when I look in the mirror, I still see echoes of who I used to be, the scared version, the lost one, the one who thought love had to come from others to exist. But I smile at them too. Because they were part of the journey. They carried me through years of confusion, shame, and silence, until I could finally stand here not hiding, not pretending, just living. And if you're watching this, maybe you know what that feels like. Maybe you've looked in the mirror and thought, that can't be me. Maybe you've felt trapped in a story someone else wrote for you. But I promise there's a version of you waiting on the other side of that fear. They're patient. They're kind. They're real. You just have to give them permission to exist. The world might not always understand. People might judge, question, or even walk away. But none of that matters more than finding peace with your reflection. Because when you do, the noise fades. The doubts fade. And what's left, what's real, is love. The quiet kind that doesn't ask for proof or permission. The kind that starts and ends with you. I used to hate mirrors. Now, they're my reminder. My proof that change is possible. That the person I dreamed of becoming wasn't a dream at all, just me, waiting to be seen. And every time I look now, I smile, because I finally recognize the person staring back. Not perfect. Not complete. But real. And that's more than enough. Because after all these years, I finally learned to love who I see in the mirror. A few weeks after that rainy morning, I started noticing small things that felt new, or maybe I was just finally noticing them. The way sunlight hit my face in the morning, the softness in my voice when I spoke kindly to myself, even the quiet confidence that began replacing the old, anxious hum inside my chest. I didn't announce anything to the world. I didn't post a big reveal or write some perfect caption online. I just started living in a way that felt honest. It sounds simple, but honesty with yourself can be terrifying. One of the hardest parts was going back to my old places, the cafe where I used to sit with friends, pretending to be someone else. I remember the first time I went back after my changes had become visible. My heart was pounding as I stepped in. The air smelled like roasted coffee beans and cinnamon, just like it used to. The barista looked up and froze for half a second before smiling. "It's been a while," she said. Her voice was gentle, not shocked, not judging, just genuine. I nodded, smiling nervously. "Yeah," I said softly. "It has." As I waited for my drink, I caught a reflection in the cafe window. My reflection leered over the city outside. For once, the image didn't feel like an intruder. It was me, standing there in a soft sweater, hair tied back, eyes tired but kind. A small moment, but it meant everything. Because before, I would have avoided looking altogether. That day, I didn't look away. Then came the day I decided to tell my father. He hadn't spoken much since that family gathering. My mother said he was trying to understand. I didn't know what that meant. One afternoon, I drove to his house, palms sweating the whole way. He was in the garden when I arrived, trimming the plants like he always did when he wanted to avoid serious talks. "Hey, Dad," I said, my voice barely steady. He didn't look up at first. "Hey," he muttered. Silence hung between us. I sat down on the bench nearby, feeling the weight of all the things I'd never said. "I know this isn't easy for you," I began, "and I know it's confusing. But I just want you to know. I'm still your child. I just finally stopped pretending to be someone I wasn't." He didn't say anything for a long time. Just kept trimming, one branch at a time, until finally he set the scissors down. "You look happier," he said quietly. "That's something I've not seen in years." My throat tightened. I nodded, tears threatening. "I am," I whispered. "For the first time, I really am." He didn't hug me, didn't say he understood, but he didn't walk away either. And in that silence, I felt something heal, even if just a little. After that day, small acts of acceptance started appearing in unexpected places. My sister sent me a photo of a necklace she said would suit me. My mom started asking for my help picking colors for her dresses. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress, tiny steps that made the world less heavy. Then one evening, I met up with my closest friend, Maya. She'd known me since childhood through every awkward phase, every excuse, every disguise. She was the first person I ever told the truth to. We were sitting in the park, watching the sunset turn the sky gold. She turned to me suddenly and said, "Do you remember the first time we met? You were wearing that oversized hoodie, and you barely spoke to anyone." I laughed softly. "Yeah, I remember." She smiled, then reached over and squeezed my hand. "You don't hide anymore. It suits you." Her words hit me harder than I expected. Maybe because all my life I thought I needed to become someone new, but what I really needed was to stop hiding. That night, as I walked home, I thought about every version of myself I'd ever been, the scared one, the angry one, the lost one, and I silently thanked them. Because they carried me through storms I didn't even have words for. A few months later, I got invited to speak at a local community event about self-acceptance. I almost said no. I didn't think my story was worth telling. But Maya insisted. "There's someone out there who needs to hear it," she said. So I agreed. When the night came, I stood backstage, shaking. The host called my name. The lights were blinding when I stepped onto that stage. I looked out at the crowd, faces of strangers, waiting, curious. My voice trembled at first. For most of my life, I thought self-love was something other people earned. I thought it came after success, after approval, after perfection. But I was wrong. It begins the moment you stop running from your own reflection. As I spoke, I could see people's faces soften. Some nodded. Some wiped tears. And somewhere in that room, I realized I wasn't telling my story just for me anymore. I was telling it for anyone who had ever felt invisible, trapped, or unloved. When I finished, the room was silent for a moment, and then people stood, applauding. I couldn't hold back the tears. Not because of the applause, but because, for the first time in my life, I wasn't ashamed of being seen. After the event, a young person came up to me, maybe 17, eyes red from crying. They said, "I didn't think anyone felt like I do, until I heard you." I hugged them. "You're not alone," I said. "You never were." It was one of those moments that stays with you forever, proof that honesty, even when it hurts, can heal more than silence ever could. Since then, life hasn't been perfect. Some days are still hard. There are still moments when old doubts whisper in my ear. But I've learned that real love isn't about erasing your scars. It's about carrying them proudly, because they remind you of how far you've come. These days, my mornings begin with a ritual. I stand in front of the mirror, take a deep breath, and just look. Not to judge, not to fix, just to see. I see the person who survived confusion, heartbreak, and fear. The person who fought to exist in a world that often misunderstands. The person who learned that being yourself isn't about courage, it's about truth. And sometimes, I think back to that version of me who used to cry quietly in the dark, praying to wake up different. If I could speak to them now, I'd say, "You already are everything you need to be. You just haven't seen it yet." It's strange, isn't it? How we spend years searching for love, only to realize the one person we needed love from most was ourselves. When you finally look in the mirror and see not your flaws, not your fear, but your strength, that's when the healing begins. And that's when you realize, the mirror isn't your enemy. It's your witness. Now, whenever I catch my reflection in a window, a puddle, a phone screen, I smile. Because I finally recognize that person. There. And if you're watching this, I hope one day, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, you'll look in your own mirror, take a deep breath, and see what I see. Not a stranger. Not a mistake. But someone brave. Someone worthy. Someone finally free. It's been a few years since that first day I truly saw myself. Sometimes, it feels like a lifetime ago, other times, it feels like yesterday. The fear, the confusion, the hiding, they've all faded into something softer now, something almost peaceful. The storm that once felt endless has turned into a quiet sea. There are still waves, of course there always are, but I've learned how to breathe through them. These days, I live in a small apartment with sunlight that spills across the floor every morning. There's a mirror by the window, not big, just enough to see my reflection when I'm sipping coffee or tying my hair. Every time I catch that glimpse, it still surprises me how calm it feels now. Not perfect, not flawless, but right. The kind of right that doesn't need to be explained to anyone. Last week, I found an old photo while cleaning, a picture of me from years ago. My old smile, stiff and unsure, eyes hiding behind walls of silence. I stared at it for a while. I didn't feel hate or regret. Just gratitude. Because that version of me, the one who survived all the pretending, who kept hoping for a day like this, deserved love too. And for the first time, I could give it to them. Sometimes I get messages from people who've seen my journey online. They say things like, "You're so brave," or "I wish I could do what you did." I always smile, but I wish they knew it's not bravery. It's necessity. It's choosing life over fear. Choosing truth over comfort. And once you start, there's no turning back. You begin to realize that courage isn't loud. Sometimes it's just the quiet act of standing in front of a mirror and saying, "I deserve to exist exactly as I am." My parents are better now. My dad still doesn't have all the right words, but he tries, and sometimes, that's enough. My mom tells people she's proud of me. Hearing her say that still makes my chest tighten, in the best way. And Maya, she's still my anchor. We laugh about old times, the awkward phases, the late-night talks about who I might become. Now, she says, "You became exactly who you were meant to be." There's a quote I read once that stuck with me: "You cannot hate yourself into becoming someone you love." For so long, I tried. I thought shame would fix me, that if I hid long enough, I'd somehow become normal. But love, quiet, patient love, did what fear never could. It helped me see that self-acceptance isn't a destination. It's a daily choice. Some days it's easy, others it's not. But it's always worth it. A few months ago, I was walking home late, and I passed by a store window. It was dark outside, and my reflection appeared in the glass, clear, confident, alive. There were people around, rushing past, not noticing. But I stopped and just looked. There was no music, no audience, no perfect lighting. Just me and that reflection, sharing a silent smile. And I realized, this was it. The peace I used to pray for. The freedom I didn't think I'd ever earn. It wasn't a grand moment, no applause, no transformation montage. It was ordinary, and that's what made it beautiful. Because it meant that being myself had finally become normal. Now, I tell my story not because I want attention, but because I know there's someone out there still avoiding mirrors. Someone still wearing a version of themselves that doesn't fit. To them, I want to say it's okay to be scared. It's okay to take your time. But please, don't give up on the person waiting underneath all that fear. They're worth the fight. And when you finally meet them, when you stand in front of that mirror and recognize the face looking back, it won't feel like fireworks or a movie ending. It'll feel like breathing for the first time. Like coming home after being lost for years. Like finally being seen, not by the world, but by yourself. Every scar, every tear, every sleepless night was worth it. Because now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see a stranger anymore. I see someone who learned that being different isn't something to fix, it's something to honor. Someone who found beauty not in perfection, but in truth. Someone who knows that love, real love, starts the moment you stop waiting for someone else to give it to you. I used to fear mirrors. Now, I leave them uncovered. Every morning, I look at that reflection and smile. Because I finally recognize the person who fought to exist. The one who made it through. The one who never stopped trying, even when it hurt. The one who finally learned to love who they see in the mirror. And maybe, someday soon, you will too.